Hey everybody, this is Jack, and I started an interview series called The Spark. And with this, really, it's scratching my own itch of um, understanding those turning points, that spark moment for artists of when they started getting traction for their music. And this first interview that I did was with Lee Wilson, and he was a super sweet guy. He has couple songs that have one song's got 3.5 million streams, another's got a million and a half, and he's just been working at it for a while. And just to give a little context for this interview, because we're kind of cutting into it in the middle of just a little portion of it. He actually went to Berklee College of Music, and he started playing shows like in college and high school, starting to build a little bit of a fan base. And he had a couple of moments where he thought he had a big break. He was chasing the dream of becoming famous, and he sent a bunch of emails and got onto a magazine called Vibe Magazine, and it was owned by Quincy Jones. And he finally got on that, and he thought that could be his big break. And that actually led to him getting onto a BET show called 106 in Park, where he performed live nationally. And he really thought that was his big break. But lo and behold, it wasn't. So he kept going. And that's where we kind of cut into this interview. And we really talk about what his actual turning point was. And let's roll it.
Yeah, I thought that was supposed to be my like big break, my turning point. And it really wasn't. I had like some meetings with labels, but nothing ever really happened. And then for years I went after that, kind of trying to chase like a record deal and trying to change my sound to fit whatever any A&R would tell me. That whole game trying to
Yeah.
be famous. And then around 2015, I was just kind of like exhausted, burnt out by that. And so I was just kind of like, I didn't want to do any music. And then I was living in New York at the time. And this is my turning point came. I had a friend of mine named Kelvin Sylvester. He's a DJ. And he was like, oh, you just come to Boston, come to my studio. I want you to try singing over dance music. And I wasn't really looking like forward to that. I was still trying to like chase R&B and pop dream. Anyways, long story short, I went to Boston, went to a studio, and it was like Boston. I don't know if you know Boston, but the winters are crazy. And we got snowed in his studio for like a week. And so we just recorded all these tracks, and we put a nice demo together. And then when he sent it, because he knew dance music, to Kenny Dope. And Kenny Dope is like legendary house DJ for Masters at Work. They've done everybody from Janet to Martha Wash to the list goes on. Madonna, everybody. And Kenny heard the record, loved my voice, and decided to sign one of the songs on a demo and release it on his label. And so he introduced me to the dance world. So that was my turning point, 2016. And I've just never turned back from doing dance music. I've just gone full steam ahead.
Wow, cool. Kind of
Yeah.
lucked out with that snow then, huh? Got snowed in and had
Yeah,
to
man. Good old
had to
Boston.
nice, nice. That's amazing, man. And so that was your turning point. So was there a specific song that really was the one that either caught Kenny Dope's attention, or one that your fans really latched onto that started getting a bunch of recognition, or was it just
Yeah.
that stack of songs in general?
Yeah, so it was like that situation was another great lesson, and I hope all the artists that are listening. I thought that just like when I did the 106 in Park and Vibe magazine, I thought that that was going to be my big break. When we did the record with Kenny Dope, because he has such an incredible career and fan base, I thought that was going to be my big break, and skip the line and get in quicker. But it was another lesson that it wasn't. It was a great experience. It was great to get introduced, but my break when I started getting like crazy streams, if that's what you mean, is it was like a year or two later, and it was a record that I did with an artist from France, from Paris, named Alistair Lane. This record called that I wrote with him called Harlem Groove, and we released that on can't think of the label right now, but it's another huge label for House World, and we released that. And then Austin Kramer, who used to be the editor at Spotify for electronic and dance, loved the record, and he put my face on the cover of. They had a Friday Crate Diggers on Spotify, so it was like New Music Friday, but it was for dance music. And he put my face on the cover, and he put the song number one on that playlist. And that playlist has like over 200,000 or so streams. And so when I got into that universe, that's when I started getting the streams went crazy, first of all, and fan base started growing, followers started growing, and then when my follow up records after that, then I was on the radar of the editorial people, and then so that was kind of the break. Harlem Groove, that record, and from there I just. But the story from that, the lesson from that was that there's no one label or famous DJ that's gonna take me to that level. Me and Alistair, two unknowns, we had to do it ourselves as far as making a great record and shooting it and hoping that someone would hear it and like it. And then Austin, gave us that chance.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Did you do anything to get in front of Austin Kramer, like reach out or anything, or he just happened to come across it?
Yes, I had no idea who he was. Sometimes, I'm sure you have your music out there too on Spotify, but sometimes it's really hard to know who that person in charge of the playlist is. So I had no idea. We would just make good music, but it was on a label called, I remember now, Nervous Records. And so they're a legendary record label for house music. So I'm sure maybe someone on their side, or just because it was on that label, maybe asked him, maybe he listened to it because he saw that name, or they sent it to him. I've never really asked him, and I've chatted with him because we've done stuff together after that. But I'm pretty sure that did play a part.
Yeah.
But I didn't know him. I didn't have a direct connection or line to him. I didn't send it to him. It was, maybe we just got lucky on that.
Yeah, so it might have been just a networking thing that you didn't even know about, which is also another lesson here, right? Like you're collaborating, you're networking. You also, what's what's cool, and I think an important lesson for even myself is
Mhm.
keep going. Even if you think something's your break and it's not, you even
Mhm.
mentioned yourself, you almost didn't, or there was a moment where you didn't want to do music anymore. What got you through that?
Yeah, I was so, I was chasing. I was making good music, but then at some point I started chasing, you need a record deal. I started chasing it. Instead of realizing, wow, I just got the magazine on my own. I got the TV show on my own without a label. I put the record out on my own, but I was still chasing, that dream. It has to look this certain way. And so many of the people that I was going to for advice, a lot of A&Rs don't really know anything. They just kind of follow trends. And so they were all telling me different things. And then I was going back and trying to change my sound to fit what I thought that they would want. And when I would do that, then they still wouldn't sign me or anything. So it was just like a little game that I was playing and they were playing with me. And so I had got burnt out. And I think the change for me was when when Calvin invited me to do house music, I didn't feel like I had anything to lose. And I was just making records for fun. And that kind of is how I started making music. I didn't start making music to get record deal. I started making because I love it and it's in me. So when I was doing the house, I guess you could probably hear the energy that I was putting on those records because I didn't really think anything was gonna happen with those records. And I didn't really care. I was just having fun. I didn't have to try to write a certain lyric or catchy lyric to be whatever's on the charts. I didn't have to format the structure of the song, you know, intro, chorus, break. I didn't have to do all that. I could just do whatever. I could sing the same lyric over and over. Whatever I wanted to do, there was no pressure. And I think I started having fun again. And then when I saw,
Mm.
oh, people like it and they're listening to it and no one's trying to make me change and do this, they're just accepting the music. That was all I needed.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it does happen that way where when you start having fun, that creativity sparks a bit and
Hmm.
that authenticity comes through, and I think that's
Yeah,
probably when people start to connect with the music too, because you were trying to be something that you maybe necessarily weren't prior
absolutely.
to that,
100%.
and then you were just being yourself. So I guess all those
Absolutely.
recommendations to be authentic actually are it's a good It's a good recommendation.
Cool. Thanks,
What do
Jack.
you think?
Loved it. Hey, one like detail question. He mentioned a snowstorm. Or you mentioned a snowstorm. What was that all about?
Oh yeah. So he met a friend in Boston, and he said, "Hey, let's just do a dance song." And he was more of an R&B and pop guy, and this guy was wanted to do a dance song, and he wasn't that excited about it. But then they ended up getting snowed in, and so they had to like stay there for like a week. They only plan on doing like a song, and they ended up doing a whole record of a set of songs. And so they kind of got lucky because they actually really dove into that dance, and really he turned into more of a dance artist after that. So it was a big part of his turning point.
I guess the lesson is obvious and you drew it out at the end, but just the level of sticking to it kind of for its own sake and not necessarily for the rewards, because the rewards didn't come for so long.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He had so many moments where he thought this was his turning point, but it turned out not to be. But yeah, he just kept going. And a couple other things that I learned from him too is, the networking collaboration is a big part of his success as well.
Yeah, he has so many songs where he's like featured or he's featuring other artists, and that only helps build the network larger and the audience pool larger. So it's very cool to see Lee's success over the years.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and he really grinded. I mean, he sent tons of emails to get on Vibe magazine, and but even though that didn't, and that's the other lesson is like it's not always going to be like one person's going to get you
Right.
famous. You know what I mean?
That is so the
Gotta,
truth. Like, or that big show that you finally got, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm opening up for so and so. Like, that may not equate to fame or to that's your moment. That's just like a large moment in the building block of a career. It's very cool to see it
yeah,
happen though for him.
I also really
yeah,
appreciated what he was saying about like kind of like blowing open the creative box. And so probably a lot of listeners have a fixed idea of what their art needs to be or sound like in order to achieve whatever. And then he had that kind of list of things like, if I just want to say one line over and over and over again, now that's fine. Like, it's like, oh, that sounds amazing. You just literally do whatever you want. And that's finally when your success came.
yeah. Once he started having fun again, he was chasing this dream, and he was starting to not have fun and just trying to go after this thing. And he even mentioned A&R agents and stuff were telling him, pop and R&B, that's what you need to do. That's where it's at. That's where the fame's at. But then he went back to just having fun with it and got authentic. And that's where he started connecting with fans.